Israel. Israeli military says there will be consequences for these strikes. The attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective.
Before we celebrate the fact that so many of these missiles were shot down or missed their target, remember, as in last April when Iran sent its previous barrage, if only 7 or 8 missiles get through, but those 7 or 8 have chemical, biological, or radiological warheads, then we're talking a whole different ballgame.
Well, we've just heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the first time since those missiles came in. And he says that he said basically Iran has made a big mistake tonight, and if it's going to pay. We heard earlier from Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, that there would be grave consequences, and the U.S. would work with Israel to make sure that they happen. So the rhetoric here is aggressive.
I'm afraid now that this has happened twice, that the Israelis are going to be tempted to respond and respond hard.
So it's pretty tense.
I think we're now in the last days of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Revolutionary Guards have made it clear that if Israel does retaliate, there will be serious escalation.
Well, I think I would not advise Iran to challenge our determination, our capabilities. In the past, we have proved it, and we will prove it again.
The Revolutionary Guard made it clear that this is a retaliation that's been coming for some time. You may recall that back in July, the head of Hamas was killed while he was visiting Iran by a rocket that went into his room inside a Revolutionary Guard compound. So deadly, it killed the head of Hamas, but also very embarrassing for Iran's Revolutionary Guard. And they had threatened to retaliate for that, and we've been waiting to see what that retaliation would be. Add to that the death of the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, last week in Beirut. The Revolutionary Guard have said this is a double retaliation for those 2 murders of allies who were very important to us. So they've tied it to, in a sort of tit for tat to those 2 incidents. And now Israel is going to have to decide how or if it wants to carry this on and escalate.
If Israel were to strike at the nuclear facilities, their pilots aren't suicidal, so they might go in with surprise, but they're not going to be able to fly out with surprise. So first, they're going to need to take out command and control and anti-aircraft batteries. But I suspect they're going to do what the Israelis did with Ismail Haniyeh and Hassan Nasrallah. They're going to go for the head of the octopus, hoping then that the tentacles will wither away. I believe that what they're going to do is go after Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and the top leaders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to try to leave a vacuum at the top. The Woman Life Freedom Movement protests that began just over 2 years ago showed that the regime has very little legitimacy among the Iranian people. The challenge is going to be, how do you take out the regime without antagonizing the Iranian people?
Is there the possibility of a more modest Israeli response here, Michael, and what would that possibly look like?
Well, Kelly, there is, of course, a more modest response that could be possible, and Israel would have a range of targets. Iranian ships that are supplying the Houthis, for example, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps leadership, generals, and so forth. There's a whole menu. Look, from Israel's point of view, in 1981, they took out the Iraqi nuclear program, and in 2007, they took out the plutonium processing plant in Deir ez-Zor, Syria. Iran is a much more complicated problem set because it's 6 times the size of Great Britain, 4 times the size of Iraq, and the program, the targets are far more disparate. The only good news here is if Israel or the United States wanted to take out the underground nuclear facilities, they don't need to destroy those facilities that are buried under mountains. They only need to take out the entrances and the exits. I used to teach as a civilian on Navy ships. And when I would ask admirals, to a man and a woman, what they would say, if you want the Iranians to take American diplomacy seriously and understand the need to stand down, what you need to do is remove U.S. aircraft carriers from the Persian Gulf. That may sound counterintuitive, but if our aircraft carriers are 400 miles away in the northern Indian Ocean, the Iranians and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will know we can strike at them, but they can't strike back at us. So actually, no, there should not be American troops present. There should not be boots on the ground. This is not Iraq. What Kelly said before with regard to oil, remember that because Iran's shore is very shallow and very rocky, most of Iran's oil exports occur from offshore oil terminals. The question then becomes whether the United States and our special forces, as during the Reagan administration, will go after those and target those more precisely.
We'll decide about when and how we will respond, but I can tell you one thing. It will be noticed. It will be painful. And I think that the people of Iran who are watching us understand that it's not against the Iranian people, it's against the radical regime that dragged the Iranian people into this situation.